whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mākina kina ki uta, kia mātaratara ki tai. Ihi ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei Māori ora. Kia ora anō. Welcome to this wonderful webinar here today, run by the wonderful Tara. I just quickly want to remind you, as you've seen, I've started the recording already. We are going to record this webinar and we will later upload it to YouTube with the guest faces blurred out so that all of us can look back at the learning shared today, and those of our friends that couldn't manage to join us today can join us later. As we are going through the presentation, please put any of your questions into the chat and we will attend to them later. But now it is time to introduce the lovely Tara, which many of you already know, who in addition to chairing TPTMT Webinar Volunteer Committee is also the Principal Advisor Learning at the Museum of New Zealand Te Papa Tongariro. Prior to her role at Te Papa, Tara held an educational leadership role, and she's really well regarded for her expertise in digital technologies, in program design, and building learning communities. Tara is very passionate about lifelong learning. She believes in innovative community learning programs that provide a wonderfully rich context which can support all teachers and learners. Today, Tara is going to talk to us about AI. What is it all about? So let's welcome Tara, and I will click those slides off so that you can share yours, Tara. Thank you.
Be with me one moment, Bano. Monica, thank you for a wonderful introduction. Just getting my slides sorted here. Now, Monica, can you, yes, that's coming up now. Fantastic. Right, here we go. Māori ora e te whānau, ko ara ki te manga te rūnei taku nākau, ko raka te awa e mahia nei aku māharahara no rakaia ahau, I mihi ana ki ngā tohu o nehi o te whanganui a Tara, I noho nei au, ko au I tū nei ki te mihi atu ki a koutou, ko Tara Fagan taku ingoa. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for coming along, and for those watching the recording. My name is Tara Fagan, and as Monica said, I am Principal Advisor Learning here at the Museum of New Zealand Te Papa Tongariro. I have a very long background and history and love of digital technologies and all things. Not all of them are applicable for our learners and what we learn, but I'm interested in what's coming out and helping make sense of what can work for our students and what can't. So this webinar today is about, obviously, AI and what's it all about. It's designed as a guide for beginners. So if you've got no knowledge or very limited knowledge, we'll take you through some examples of what's happening. AI is constantly changing, and often next week there'll be something new on the market, or there'll be changes to the advancement of AI and what it's capable of doing. So just bear, if you're watching this recording in about a month's time, some of the things that I'm talking about today may well have been surpassed by the technology itself. So in this session, you can see what we're going to discuss. We're also going to be doing a live demo. So I'll take you out of the slideshow into the web, and we'll look at some of the tools that we're going to be talking about. I've got my fingers crossed it'll work. Monica and I have given it a test run, but as with all things technology, when you're doing a live session, it often fails. So we'll be hoping that we can get through. And as I said, very much a beginner's session about what we're going to cover today. Plenty of chance to ask questions throughout and at the end of the session. So first off, what is AI? Where did it come about? AI, artificial intelligence. There's lots of jargon surrounding AI. Some of these terms that are on the screen you might have seen before, such as artificial intelligence, Gen AI, large language models. So when we're talking about AI, the general AI that's there, just the AI without the gen in front of it, that's the machines that can perform tasks for us that generally or typically require human intelligence, like learning, problem solving, decision making. or mechanisms. So artificial intelligence is something that can do simple things. Siri is in general an example of AI where you can put a simple request into it and it will respond. So I might say, Siri, can you play this piece of music for me? And Siri, if it understands my accent, will play it for me. But that's the extent. You can't have conversations with Siri. It's sort of a one command, one action, and then it forgets what you've previously said. Gen AI is an evolving technology, just like AI is, but Gen AI, generative AI, is a type of AI that can create new content. So you can create images, text, music, and it can recall the instructions that you've given it so that it becomes more conversational. Large language models, or LLM in abbreviation text, is what AI is trained upon. It's large sets of data in human-like language. So they're sort of the brain behind chatbots, if you like, and language transitions tools. So it's formed by learning the language networks. It's fed lots of information. And to create an AI or a Gen AI version, it takes thousands of hours of inputting data and checking it. So it's not as straightforward as it might seem. There's a lot of development that goes into these models. Machine learning, well, that's a way of teaching computers to learn from the data. So without being explicitly programmed, if you like. So it's a way of teaching it. And then you've got neural networks, or AAN, which is artificial neural networks, and that's the building blocks of many of the AI systems. So there's lots of technology, or lots of technological words or jargon, if you like. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it's just important to know what they are. So if you come across them online or in some of your readings, you've got a little bit of understanding of what these are if you haven't before. Now, we're not going to go into depth of this timeline at all, so don't think, oh my goodness, where are we going, back to the 1940s? But what I wanted to show was that AI, even though it's been talked about more recently, and some of us may have only become more recently aware of it, perhaps in the last 2 or 3 years, it was actually talked about way back in the 30s and the 40s with people making predictions about that, you can see there in 1968, Arthur Clarke and Steve Kubrick said by the year 2001 we will have machines with intelligence that match or exceed humans. Turing in the 1950s talked about it. So it's had a history, not much movement or trafficking until later on, but it's had some movement around that time and development. So it's been talked about for a long time. We just haven't had the capability as such as we do now. However, more recently, you can see here that we have. So 2017, we started to see some developments happening, and this is what's led to this increased shift where we've gotten from it being something that we've known will possibly come in those earlier days through to what we've got now. So 2017, one of the first models around language programming was developed. ChatGPT version 1, which most of us didn't know about, released in 2018. 2019 it was improved, 2020 started to get more developed, and about 2022 it came through to public mainstream around use and access to it. So you can see it's had quite a long history, but it's really been in those last few years that it's developed to the extent that it has today. So some examples of AI, you've probably heard of these chatbots. And I have to say, chatbots are appearing on just about every website I'm going on to now. I've got somebody popping up asking if they can help me. Some of them have better language controls than others. Some I get frustrated for and I just want to ask for a human. Others are more workable. There's Gen AI available through things like ChatGPT. If you're a Microsoft user, you've probably got Copilot on your device. Gemini is Google's version of it. There's Perplexity, which sort of combines a whole range of AI platforms. I know it's got ChatGPT in it. I think it's got Gemini and Claude. So that's their DALL-E 3, which is an image generation ability. So there's a whole range of them, and there's new ones popping up all the time. So we're going to look at some of these today in our live demo. So in fact, we might just go to the live demo now and have a look. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a moment and come back to you. Okay, that didn't seem to want to work. There we go. I'm coming back now. There we are. Okay, I'm going to reshare my screen now, and we're going to go in and do some of the AI stuff so you can get a sense of what it can do, because there's nothing like seeing some of the capabilities of the tools if you're not familiar. So I'm going to reshare my screen, and I'm going to have to do a bit of sharing my screen and unsharing my screen to get volume and sound and things working. Monica and I had a practice last week, so we think we've got it fairly well connected. So I'm just going to share my window, go over here, share, and go straight into this one. So the first tool that I'm going into, and I'm just checking on my second screen, it's come up. This one is called Gemini. So this is Google's version of AI. And I've got some prompts here. So to save me typing them out, I'm going to cut and paste them and put them into Gemini. So bear with me as I do that. So generative AI, Google's AI that's there. So like ChatGPT, they do very similar things. You can see down the bottom, you've got a microphone, so you can talk to it and listen to the responses. I'm not going to do that today, and it's not ideal if you're in an open plan office. Trust me, I've tried that. It picks up all sorts of background noises. So the best way to use it is to use some prompts. So first of all, today, I'm going to put this one in that I've pre-prepared earlier. Just saying hello and asking Gemini what it can tell me about museum education. So there we go. It's popping up and letting me know that museum education is a vibrant and evolving field that focuses on using museum resources and experience. Great, not too bad option there. So you can see all the things like community engagement, collection and research. Just skimming through it, it looks as though it's got a fairly good description of what museum education is. Then it refines it and goes into museum education in New Zealand, which is interesting because when I did my test of this, it didn't go that deep, but now it is. So it brings up some of our museums there. Sadly, it looks as though it's only focusing on the main regional museum. So that's a bit of a shame it hasn't gone further. Important thing is down the bottom, you can see where it gets its sources from. So it cites all its websites and just puts it in there for us. So we've got all that information there. So if we're not sure or we want to explore something deeper, we can go into that source and see. So let's just say we've got that, but I actually want it to do something a bit different for me. So I'm going to ask Gemini, once I can come back to my screen, if it can write it in teenage speaks. So let's just say I want it in a bit of a different flavoured language, and let's see what it comes up with. What's it going to give us if we put it in teenage speak? Okay, so museum education is basically about making all museums awesome for learning and just not snoozing through the dusty old stuff. So you can see how you can have some fun with it and you know, play around with it. So you might not want it in teenage speak, but you might say to ChatGPT or Gemini in this case, I'm working with 6 to 7 year olds. Can you describe this topic for me in a language that's suitable for 6 to 7 year olds? The other thing I might do is I might ask it to write it in French. So just copying and pasting my code over now and going to put it in, and it rewrite it in French. Oh, it can. Look at that. So I'm not fluent in French by any regard, so I have no idea whether the information is accurate. But again, it just shows some of the base tools that the generative AI tools can do. I'm going to give it a little bit of a different challenge now. In fact, I'll go to a new chat. I just press the plus button up over there, and then it opens up a new chat for me. Now, I have to say too, as I'm using this, I am using a paid version of Gemini, which I have got for this webinar. When we move over to ChatGPT, I am using the free version, but right now I've paid for the version. And we'll talk about paid versions versus free versions a little bit later on, because there's some significant differences about that. But right now, I'm coming back. I'm just copying and pasting my code. This time around, I want to ask ChatGPT to do something a little different for me. So I want to see how we might apply it. So this time around, I've said we're a teacher in a classroom, visiting a museum for a day-long program. And we've worked with the museum educators to co-design our program. Focused on our program is for students to understand Aotearoa spelt wrong, New Zealand history with a focus on dawn raids. So as part of the understanding, students are returning to class to create their own exhibition where they'll focus on a range of everyday objects and digital creations to show their understanding. Be a component of literacy planning their designs, but also in the label writing. And then we go on and talk about while in the museum, the students will have time to understand literacy through the interpretation and writing of labels. So I want ChatGPT to design an assessment rubric that students will assess for this task. And I've also said to ChatGPT, let me know if you have any questions. I'm just going to submit that now and let's see what it might come up with. Oh, they think it's a really good program plan, so that's rewarding, a bit of positive feedback coming back for me for that program plan. Great. And they've designed the rubric for me. So you can see here these tasks, you can see historical understanding, and you can see where students, it's just cut off to the side there. Historical understanding, we can see what an excellent grade might be in terms of historical understanding, that they demonstrated deep understanding of dawn raids, through to improvement where students struggle to demonstrate. So rubrics, it's a very simple example, but it's starting to show some of the possibilities of the ways that we can do that. As always with anything, we need to check that the information is extremely accurate. So you wouldn't just do this and then print it out and give it to the class. You actually want to read through and correct the text if it's not right. So you've got the ability to do that. And you can see there I can export that to Google Sheets if I want to, and then share it with my class. So it's covered all the areas too that I've asked it for: historical understanding, the exhibition item that the students are going to create when they're back in the classroom based around dawn raids. It talks about label writing, talks about their interpretation skills and their literacy skills. As you get more advanced with practicing with this, you can also link it to the curriculum. You can say you're looking at this area of the curriculum or this area of NCEA assessment and give them those links, and it will design it specifically according to that. And this is where I think these tools are really going to be helpful, not only for teachers, but also for us as we're starting to understand some more information. So that's that. And just quickly before we go, one of the other tools that I like, and I'm just going to open up a new chat for this one too, is you can get it to summarize documents. So I've got a document I uploaded earlier, this one here. So I'm going to open that. So this is an article, and I'm just looking at the name. It's called John Hattie and a couple of colleagues wrote it, and its title is, let's see, it hasn't come up on the screen. No, I haven't got it in front of me, but it's about AI and some of the cautions. So I'm just going to say, can you summarize this document, please? Now, Monica, I think I've given you the link to this, so if anyone wants the full article, you can have that. Most AIs will summarize the documents for us. So it's not just that I've got the paid version of Gemini that it can do this, it will actually do it across any one. So here we go. This article discusses the potential implications of AI on education, explores how it works. Now that's really interesting because when I've done it in ChatGPT, I get a far more fuller summary. So I'm actually, while I've got ChatGPT open, I'm going to do the same in there, and let's see what it can do. I'm just going to go over here. So what is this article? Right. Now I'm going to upload this article here. You're following me. I'm currently in deep dive in the museum, which I don't want to be in. I'll just go to ChatGPT. Here we go. We'll come back to deep dive the museum. Now, unfortunately, because I've so used to having manners, I can't help but please and thank you, the AI. But actually, I don't think that's a bad thing, because I worry as a society, if we're so used to giving instructions and that to a machine, that we'll forget some of those mannerisms that we have as humans anyway. So I'm not, it used to bother me that I was pleasing and thanking a machine, but actually I've got used to it now. So let's see if it can understand my typing there. Summarize this article, and let's see how its version might come up with a difference. So already you can see it's more detailed in ChatGPT than it was in Gemini. I'm not sure why that is, but it's really taking, I think the paper's about 30 pages long, and it's, in fact, I've got it here now. I've just finally found it. The paper's 45 pages long. So it's taken a 45-page document and been able to summarize it for me quite well, as the authors look at the implications for AI, particularly in education. So that worked quite well. and it's a good way of summarising some academic articles. Again, we proceed with caution with anything that AI does because sometimes it's not always accurate. Now, one of the things I wanted to do, and this is a demo, I'm first going to go to Te Papa's Collection Online site and start Google. I'm doing this because I'm going to show you how deep dive the museum works. So one of our team have designed, in fact, I'll go to it now, Gareth Watkins has designed a part of a little app within ChatGPT called Deep Dive the Museum. So first of all, I'm going to go to Collections Online and I'm just going to search for Matariki. So it goes behind, it looks at all the data that we've got there and it says we've got 44 results and it brings up the articles and then I have to click into each one to get the information that's sitting behind there. Not a great way if you're wanting to find objects or information, but if I go to Chat Deep Dive in the Museum, tell me about Matariki. Here, instead of going through and just giving me a list of the objects, it goes away and talks to the data sitting behind those images that we see there, and then it brings me up with a paragraph or two about the taonga. So here it goes here, and it will link to collections. It gives me a little base information, and then it's going to pull out a couple of pieces that it thinks might be useful. And if I'd put more information in and said, tell me about Matariki in relation to the stars or Matariki in relation to the Maramataka, I would get a very different answer than what I've got here, quite general. But you can see there, it has pulled up and taken what were just images on this collection online here that you would have to go into each of those 44 to make sense of. And it's created that. Now, this is just something that Gareth's playing around with. It's not something that's developed, and at the moment it's only based on the API data from Te Papa and Collections Online. But you can see how very quickly this is going to evolve into something that a lot of places will do. And it's looking more and more likely, and there's a lot of literature around this at the moment about how search engines such as Google and Bing will possibly disappear because the generative AIs will take over because you get a more fluid response. You don't have to, if you Google search Matariki, for example, like Collections Online, you get a list and you have to go into each one. Whereas if you asked a Gen AI, it will summarise and give you the best answers and all the results that it thinks is best and then put it over. The more information that you put in, the more accurate your results are. So if I try...
Sorry.
Go ahead, Monica.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt the flow, but there was a really good question that sort of links into what we're talking like right now. Karen was just asking with the summarizing of the document you did just before, what can the AI do with that document once you've put it in? Can they use that information for future searches or other people, or does it get deleted?
Very good question. And we're coming to that later on, but basically, if you're not in a paid version, if you're in a free version, anything you put up is goes into testing the model and can be publicly available. So I'll talk more about that later on, but really good question to ask. So when you upload something like that, you can do that, but just bearing in mind anything you upload can be accessed. So just have that in mind as you do things. In terms of that article, it's actually an open source, freely available one, so I'm not so worried about that, but there's obviously some sensitive information that you wouldn't want to do. So I'm going to go back into ChatGPT now, and I'm going to get it to create an image for me this time. So I'll just go into my little prompt document because it would save my things. So Monica, just interrupt as questions come in. I know I don't often pause for breath or pause for anyone to ask questions, so just feel free to interrupt and put them in there. And as the more I go on and the more excited I get, the less opportunity there will be for any pause. So just go.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now I'm just coming back to our ChatGPT. Yes, I've got it back up on the screen. Right, I'm going to post my prompt in. So this time around, I'm asking it to create an image of a class learning at the Waitangi Treaty Grounds. So museum education program being delivered at the Waitangi Treaty Grounds. So let's see what ChatGPT and the image creator behind this is DALL-E 3 comes up with. So, hasn't done too bad. So you can see that there's people sitting around, not sure what they're sitting around, but anyway, they're sitting on drums. outside a semi-marae with a poster in the background, and it looks like there could be an educator there with some student's hand on there. It's actually not too bad an image. Sometimes you can do this and you can get some really weird images. But ask me if I want any adjustments. I might say, can the educator be prominent? Now, I haven't tested this. I have no idea what it'll bring me up, but let's see what it'll do this time around. Takes a few minutes to think about it, but really when you think about the detail they'll put in, it's not very long at all. Oh, here we go. Look, the educator at the Waitangi Treaty Grounds. I assume this is the educator here. Interesting image, but not too bad. What do you think, Monica, given you come from there?
Well, it is interesting. You can definitely tell that some of your prompts have been picked up on.
Yeah.
When you look at students, you look at treaty grounds, we've got a big wharirunanga there, so there's a building that resembles that. And it certainly has picked up on the idea that there is different cultures involved in there. Well, I wouldn't say that what the educator is wearing is what our educators are wearing, but I can see how some of the prompts has been transferred. And it's quite impressive to what I've seen in the past. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting about how all these things evolve and how quickly they've evolved with it. We'll talk a little bit later about some of the cautions that we've got to be aware of and some of the biases sitting under Gen AI and the models that's changed. Just going to see if I've got a tab up here. Yes, I have, but it's not, no, it's not going to show me now. Monica, I've lost my second screen, so I'm just working blind now, so you can let me know what you can see. But what I am going to do now is go to something called Soul Machines, and I'm going to actually see if I can reconnect because I need my second screen so I can see you all and see what you're seeing. So bear with me. It looks as though it's taken me right out. Right. And I will try and get back into the meeting. Now, Soul Machines is where it's a version of AI that's got some exciting, probably some things that you need to be cautious with too around AI. So I'm going to... All right, I might just leave that off rather than try and do two things at once. So Soul Machines here, you can see you've got a range of people that you can have a conversation with. So you've got Atlas, who might help you with your personalised fitness plan, Eleanor for practicing Spanish, you've got Isabel for homework help down there, Alex for practicing interviews, English with, so there's a range of things. So who am I going to pick today? I might go to Mia and practice some corporate conversations. So I'm going to pop through to her. Monica, if none of this works out, just let me know.
We can see the screen that's coming up where you're accepting something.
You may not get the sound, actually. I might stop sharing for a moment and come back and do the window again. I think this is where I have the problem. Yeah. So I'll just come back to the chat. It's the trouble when you have too many tabs open and you can't quite see where you are. Right, this time around, I'm just going to share the tab and you'll get the sound because it's quite impressive technology when you see it. And here we go. And the share's on and I'm sharing the tab. So here we go. Should be coming on your screens very shortly. Here we go. Right. So I'm going to go into Mia, which I've got open somewhere, but I'll click on it again. Now it's going on annotate the screen, Monica, which I don't want. So
I think the tab you're sharing is that tab, so it's not jumping over to the other one.
Okay, all right. I'm going to put it there and just come back. There we go. Come back to the meeting.
Just for everybody else in the background, when you use Google Meet, you can share the sound, but only out of a tab. So you need to hit exactly that tab that you want to have playing the sound to you.
Right, now I'm going to share a tab again. Now let's see if it's that one. That's the one I want. Here we go. So I'm going to come on in and have a conversation with Mia. Now it's only letting me annotate again. So I'm not sure why that is, because we had it working perfectly last week. That's okay. I'm going to stop sharing. What I might do is rather than have the sound on, I'll just share the window and we just won't get their sound.
And I've put the link for you into the chat so you can have a go at it yourself, soulmachines.com. It has been very impressive.
Yeah. Great. So you should be seeing my screen now, and I'll get off all that perplex stuff in just a moment. There we go. So I'm going to come on in this time. And it's just having a think. It's just loading up my corporate conversation, Mia. Now I'm going to turn on the chat rather than have Mia chat to me. Turn off the mic. There we go. So I'm going to say, hello, Mia. Right, so I'm only going to type a quick prompt in today, but I'm not sure if you can hear the AI. She's talking to me. I'm just going to stop at this point. Could you hear her, Monica?
We couldn't hear her, but we could see the text come up. And I can assure all of you on the call that when you are on the site yourself, she literally talks back at you. You speak at her if you have your microphone enabled and speak back, and it is just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Tara Tara demonstrated that last week.
Yeah, and it works really well. I don't know why it didn't work today when we tried sharing it, but the more you spend talking with these people online, the more realistic they seem. I mean, they are looking artificial and behind a screen, but actually they respond really well to you. So if you ever want to go for an interview, I hope none of you do, but you can do interview questions there, or for your students practicing homework. It's really quite real. And yeah, it's amazing to think where these tools might take us as we go forward into the future. So that's that one. I'm going to briefly try one. There's another app called Story, and I'm going to try and share my screen for this, but I'm not sure how it will work because we didn't have much luck with the last one with noise, but let me just try. I'm going to just find it here. So this one creates stories. So you put in prompts, and this is a really bad example, but I wanted to show you how AI can get it wrong. So I put in a prompt for it saying, can you create a story about some people who come to Te Papa to attend a lecture and also look at the museum? And I'm going to go to this one, and I'm going to see if I can play it.
I step into the Grand Te Papa. With my colleagues, intrigued, we admire the Maori artifacts, marvelling at the intricate carvings. Later we dine at the museum's restaurant, enjoying the local cuisine. Post-dinner, we attend a lecture by a historian on New Zealand's history. His passion and knowledge captivate us as we delve into the past. The lecture ends, leaving us enlightened and in awe of New Zealand's rich history.
So I'm going to stop that there. I'm also going to stop sharing my screen and come back to you.
Just to let you know, we could hear the sound. Yeah, we could hear the sound.
Yeah. That was, I don't know what happened. I just said Karen's quote about that's what I was thinking. That's an example of where AI gets it completely wrong. Their hands were all over the place. The people didn't look like people. The Māori heritage that they learned so much about clearly weren't Māori. They weren't tangata whenua. So it gets things wrong. The other thing to look at in that is that it's very gender biased. So you could see lots of males, lots of Pakeha. It is a flawed process at times. So while I'm not saying that that particular app, story.com, is flawed, what I'm showing you is that AI can get things very, very wrong. But it's a free program. You can pay to download it and all the rest. I didn't want to do that. But yeah, it just shows you where you can go wrong, and it can do that in a video that it's created, but equally it can do it in the text or the email or whatever writing prompts you put in that it can craft for you too. So I'm just going to re-share my screen and go back to our PowerPoint. That's the end of our live demo, and on the whole, that seemed to go really well. So that is a relief. I'm just going to share that whole window. Now, Monica, I'm working blind, so I can't see what you can see, but hopefully the presentation is up and live. Yes? No?
It is up, but it's not at the full screen.
Okay, it might come as a full screen now. So when working with AI, what are some of the things that we need to think about? Prompts are crucial. Having clear prompts and instructions, and the more clearer and concise they are, the better they are for good AI responses, particularly when you're texting, typing things in, and you want a good document or response back, or in the case of making movies, you want a really good movie back. The more specific you are with your prompts, the better that the response is for you. So I thought, well, what can we do? What's the best way to prompt AI? So I put it into AI and asked it itself. It's created a document for me, which we'll put up with the recording. It's a bit longer than this document. I just summarized it there, but it created a 3-page document for me about how to prompt with AI. And equally to it, created the image. So it didn't create the slide. I put the two together, but I said, I want some prompts. Tell me the best way to prompt AI. And then I said, can you create an image to go with it? So ChatGPT created this as a whole.
Can you please take us to slide 12? Because we can only see slide 8 right now.
Okay. I will, let's see, I'll stop sharing and retry. It's a shame because it's a great slide, actually. ChatGPT did a really good job. Okay, let me just come back to the meeting. And I'll try resharing. I want to go window there. This is what happens when you're working blind. Can everyone see that now? You should be seeing.
We still just see the PowerPoint, not the full presentation.
Okay. Are you seeing it now? No?
It's just come off.
Okay. I've just cancelled it and redone it. Is it right now? It should have a bullet point number 1 starting a conversation.
At the moment, we don't have a screen share showing yet.
Okay. Well, the technology worked well live, but this part didn't go so well. Right, I'll restop and reshare. Here we go. Go straight over to the PowerPoint. How's that looking now? Whoops, looking now.
It's starting to come in, but it stays on your slide screen. So if you just want to take us through the slides, you can see number 11 selected on your PowerPoint.
Okay. All right, I'm not sure what else I can do because it's showing full screen on mine and I'm sharing. So I'll stop sharing. I'll try the tab this time. And if that doesn't work, I'm just going to talk anyway. And you can imagine what the slides look like. Nothing but flexible when it comes to technology. So I will go here again, try this way and see if that works. And go into PowerPoint. How's that looking? That might be right this time.
Yay.
Right, it's not there. So you can see now what ChatGPT has done here. And it's just talking about some of the prompts. So you start with a conversation, and when you're doing that, you're really clear with your requests. So you can even say, I want you to be a teacher of a classroom, or you are the director of the museum, and I am an educator writing you an email. And so you might go on and tell me some other information. So it's got that. It did also have a second point under starting a conversation that said, be polite with me. I didn't put that up in the summary version of it because I didn't think we needed to worry about that. Clarifying your needs, so explain your purpose, you add some context around what you're doing, you can adjust your response. So you put it in, it'll come up, and with ChatGPT it says something around the lines, are you happy with this? Would you like another version? So you can do that. Or you might say, yes, I'm happy with this, but I'd like less of this paragraph and I'd like you to talk more about this subject. And it will take that text and recreate it. Does a whole lot of different tasks for you. It can help with things like coding, giving step-by-step guidance. It can problem solve things. It can iterate on complex requests. And there's a whole lot of things there that you can see that it can do. It does have limitations, as I said, and we'll talk a little bit more about sharing personal information as we go through. The AI Literacy Institute, which is a New Zealand institute, has come up with this model. So you start at the bottom and run your way out. So you start with your context, your background information, and you go to your role, your example, your style, your task. You don't always need a role in it, but sometimes if you're writing for a specific audience, like you might say, you are a lawyer and you're going to advise a client about this. And that just helps it that the AI set its scene so it knows. The other thing you can do is talk about style. You want it to be friendly, informative, or this is academic, or you don't want to come across as too abrupt or angry. So you can tell it the sort of style that you want, and then it will produce it. It's just some of the prompts that we use when we go through. Now, this is interesting. Tracking is crucial, vitally crucial, and I can't iterate that enough when working with AI, whatever you're doing with it. Gen AIs will become more and more accurate as we progress, but always get your work checked. So you can see here that in the United States, a lawyer asked ChatGPT to write a court brief for it, and they put in the relevant details about the case. ChatGPT produced the brief, they submitted it to the judge, but in that there were 6 legal cases that ChatGPT had created that had never happened, that was cited in that brief when they went to the judge. So you can see that has massive implications. So always be checking if you use it for any work like that. Even the references that it uses, it can create, that's called hallucination. So AI hallucinates, which means it thinks it's right, but it can often get some facts wrong and some serious facts. So always fact versus fake, check it. And particularly really important in the roles that we're in here in culture and heritage, being trusted places of information. I know none of us would do this, but it's just, you know, it's always good to know sort of where the constraints are, the boundaries. The other thing is about confidentiality, and be careful with what we share on the platform, which goes back to the question you asked us, Karen, around what happens with that information. Not all Gen AI systems are private. They can take the information and they can use it to retrain their models to make them get better and evolve as they go forward. The information can go somewhere, be in the cloud. People can discover it if they want to. So be really careful. You wouldn't want to put sensitive information into an AI unless it was private. So if you buy a version like the Gemini that I've bought, or Copilot that we've got here that's part of our Teams package, anything that goes into Copilot doesn't go anywhere by your information, and it gets deleted. So it doesn't go anywhere. So I can use those two safely. I have a personal subscription at home to ChatGPT, and that's the same thing. So you put your information in and it stays safe. If you put it into the free version, it can be used in a number of ways. Samsung discovered this, funnily enough. Was it last year or the year before? They were marketing a new phone, and some of their marketing people put in, tell me the best way to market this phone or something similar. They described the phone and put the details in. They put it into the free version of ChatGPT. And so people discovered what the latest Samsung phone was going to be, because if the data that you put in helps train the model, when you ask it questions, it can spit that data back out. So it's really interesting. As it says here, ChatGPT doesn't keep secrets, certainly not under the free model.
Yeah. Tara, Karen had another good question. When using AI content or content that was created by AI, do you have to say that it was created by AI? What's the copyright policy there?
I would always say it's created by AI, like the slide that I showed a couple of slides ago where I said the image and the text was created by AI. But that's a really good question that leads us to our next slide, Karen. You always seem to be at the right prompt in time. So a rising issue, and one that's rapidly evolving, is around AI. So it's a very complex system, and the legal framework's only catching up with the technology, and the technology is still so far ahead. So there's a lot of talk at the moment around copyright, who owns what information. In terms of AI created work, so if you create something with AI at the moment, they're saying AI is a tool, and can't at this stage hold any copyright. So if you create something with AI, technically you can't say that AI has the copyright issue of it, but I think there's a human element of acknowledging where it's come from. I think it's different if you get it to check work, if you write the bulk of it and then say, can you just edit this for me? That's a different matter. But I think if you're getting it to create a whole document, I would personally acknowledge that as saying with assistance by or whatever. But I think it's a personal thing. The other thing is around artists' work. There's a lot of discussion at the moment and that's quickly advancing but still not there around copyright of people's work, particularly around derivative work. So if AI models are trained on vast data sets of existing images, these are potentially copyrighted works. So there's concern around whether the AI generated art could be considered derivative works and then infringes on the original copyright or the original artist's work. So there's a lot of work being done in this space, and it's just food for thought at this stage. But the issue around copyright and licensing will continue to progress as we go through.
We just had a little chat sort of on the back end around that there might need to be regulations around that, and you know, AI is developing so fast that the regulations are really running after it.
Yeah, it's really funny because I tested recently when I was getting ready for this webinar, and I asked it to create a picture in the style of Van Gogh, and it said it couldn't do that, but it could create a style based on his work. So I thought that's a change that I've noticed in the last month around how they're thinking about copyright, but there's still a very long way to go when we're thinking about that. But as we set out with AI, we've got to be thinking about copyright and how we use it. And what the implications are. So this next slide, image generation. So I used ChatGPT for these, which is based off the DALL-E 3. And I put in the prompts, you know, show a person exploring a museum of the future and create some images. So this is it here. The bottom left slide actually says Museum of the Future on it. I'm not quite sure what's in this Museum of the Future. It looks interesting. But it's just with showing the different things that it does. So one of the benefits are sometimes we can't find copyright-free images to use in our work at the moment. ChatGPT or any of the other systems can produce them for us. So if you're looking for something specific, and there are some very realistic images that it can create. These ones are all looking a bit fake, but it's worth playing around to see. So at the moment, it can create copyright-free images and illustrations for you, so you might be able to use those in your work. I would always put under the bottom an image created by ChatGPT, but that's a personal thing. It can be refined for your needs and reduces a whole lot of search time. I mean, when I present, I use a lot of images, and in the past when I've done presentations, I can spend ages trying to find the right image to go with what I want to talk, whereas ChatGPT, if I put the right prompts in for it, will find it very quickly. Again, caution can be very biased by gender and culture. It hasn't got the ethic lens or cultural lens over it at the moment, and prompts need to be very clear to get the detail in. So it's not flawless by any means, but it's there and it's doing some things, but we've got to be very aware of the biases it creates. I'm getting just a sense of time here, so I've got 10 minutes left. So I might run through these slides quite quickly, but happy to answer any questions. And Monica and I have been talking about whether there's a need for a second one focusing around museums, so we might wrap education and museums in it. But it's early days in how AI is being used in education. There's some are adopting it, but there's a lot of fear around it, particularly around students having ChatGPT or something similar to write essays for them, which you can see how that could be. It's quite appealing to some students, I'm sure, to have ChatGPT or another Gen AI write work. So teachers are having to think differently about how assessment's done. Students, for example, can be using it to prompt or put ideas in for brainstorming, and there was an article on RNZ and stuff recently about students from different Wellington colleges about how they're using it, and a lot are saying if they're stuck writing something, they might put it in to give them some ideas, and then they'll take it and work off it. In fact, the students that were interviewed said that they'd never use it to write the essay. Good on them. But they just use it as a brainstorming idea, and both teachers and students are doing that. It's a better search engine, so it's coming across better and really useful for research. So if you say, I'm studying this topic on matariki, it will go and find you a lot of information that then you can go and research and find out. Teachers are using it to tailor work to the interest of students. They're creating rubrics, tailored assessments with it. Some of them are using it to write school reports. I'm still in two minds about how I feel about that, because actually, as a parent, that would be the personalised information I'd like coming through. And also, too, if you're putting student information into a free version of a Gen AI, what then happens to that person's information? So I assume the teachers that are using it for report writing are using a walled system that doesn't let that information go further.
I just put a quick comment in there, Tara. Job applicants are increasingly using it for their job applications.
Yeah.
And it's a really good point that you're making about the free AI, because there would be a whole lot of people who put a whole lot of their details into the free versions. And, you know, we don't quite know where that's going to go.
Yeah. And again, it comes down to checking. It's a good thing around job interviews. We recently had a job going here at Te Papa, and I would say probably 10 of the 73 that came through, applications came through, were clearly written by AI. You could tell in the language it didn't make sense at times. They hadn't proofed or checked it. And there were just oddities. I mean, some of the others might have been written by AI as well, but you couldn't tell. But certainly some of these were very clearly written. So it's worth checking. But you're right.
There are some online AI checkers now as well.
Yes.
That will check your documents whether it's likely to be computer generated.
Yeah. Although because AI is progressing so much, it's the research is showing those checkers are becoming very outdated. So universities and that are relying on it to check for any work that may have been completed by Gen AI, the Gen AI is beating those systems. So, you know, it's only going to be a matter of time till people can use that tool effectively to produce letters, and I won't pick up whether it's written by Gen AI or not. Very quickly, Carmingo, as part of the Khan Academy, they have AI as a tutor to help you. So if you're stuck on a subject, you can go through, and rather than it give you the answer, it works out where you're coming stuck and just scaffolds you through the learning. So no matter where you are or what you're learning, it can take you through. It's a really, really useful tool. Now, because of time, I'm going to slip over these next slides, but Monica will put the links in. There's a blueprint for Aotearoa that came out earlier this year, focusing on education and also the creative industries sector. It looked at 5 areas, creative and educational, one about thinking about the AI that's needed. The public service have put out the Generative AI Intelligence Guide. It's a one-pager for 10 do's for trustworthy use. And the Ministry of Education have a very good generative AI hub on their website for schools and thinking about how to use it. And I've just put these in here, but if we do another session on this, I might take it through. The links will come through to you, but they're different frameworks for thinking about AI. And most importantly is that currently Manatū Tonga have a long-term insights briefing document that they've got open now. These long-term insights are designed to help us think as a country about the place and plans for the future. So it's focusing solely on cultural and heritage, and it's chosen digital technologies with a focus on AI. You can see there how digital technology changed the way New Zealanders tell their stories in 2040 and beyond. So there's a brief document there. It's about 10 pages. Have a read, and then there's a survey to fill out. It closes on Monday. So if you're really interested in feeding into how AI might work in the cultural heritage sector, jump in and have a look at that. It's really useful. And just before I take off and see if we've got time for any questions, you know, we've talked a lot about generative AI, artificial intelligence, and I've put this image up. I saw this at Pātaka on the side of the building many years ago about knowledge helps you to see further. You know, when we're talking about AI, there was always a role for people in everything that we do. We wouldn't exist. So AI might be the tool, but we're the master, and we're the ones that help shape it and create it. So whatever we do, there is still a role for people, for teachers, for everything. So on that note, I'm going to stop so I can come back and actually see the screen. I've missed all the questions and that coming through, but thank you, Monica, for feeding some of them through to me. and I will be back with you now. So I'm sorry we've gone a little bit over my presentation time, so it only leaves us about 4 minutes for questions. But were there any coming through the chat, Monica, or anything that people wanted to know?
Well, Donna just made a really good point. Hey, Donna, I'm just going to read that out. She's thanking you. I knew very little about AI before this workshop. I can see the impact around learning and concerned about the privacy part. This encouraged me to look into this topic more manually, not through AI. And I think, Donna, you are on the same camp as many of us with that. I mean, I feel like I'm not even scratching the surface, and I pride myself on being quite digital. So, Tara, what do you think? You know, where do we start? Where does any of us start in the journey exploring AI?
Yeah, the main thing is to read more about it. It's going to be here. It's going to change. I think it's going to have huge impact on the way we operate as a society. So it doesn't say embrace it all, take it into your spaces and use it in everything you do, but more read about it and have a look and see, so you know what some of the terms are and some of the things that are coming, or the cautions around it. I think that's hugely important as we move forward with it. We can't ignore it. It is here. Government departments are talking about it, mana tūtonga, and that shows the level of impact that people know. We can't keep up with the speed of change. As I said when I started out, the information in this webinar will probably be, some of it will be outdated in a month's time. So we can't keep up with the speed of change, but we just need to keep an awareness of what happens. And if we can do that, then we're doing a great job.
I noticed that in the chat we had a few comments about the bias and the gender bias, and you know, all the white people or white guys in their suits on the picture. Yeah. What are people's opinion about that? To seeing that many of us are so heavily involved with looking at our bicultural country.
Is that a question for me?
Oh, it's a question for everybody, probably.
Okay, great. That's good. I'm just going to stop there and let somebody else talk.
I mean, I guess I'd say it underscores the importance of critical thinking, critical literacy skills, and getting students to engage critically with these sources of information, AI generated if they are. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be crucial, Ricky. Critical thinking now more than ever. Yeah, it's always been important, but more so.
How will AI become anything that we might refer to as multicultural?
Yeah, there's a lot of work being done in that space at the moment, particularly around biculturalism. And I haven't got the links with me now, but there's a lot, particularly around ensuring Māori are better represented, Te Tiriti is better representative. But to train these models, it takes many, many thousands of hours to do. But there's people working in that space to try and create a balance, but they're catching up rather than anything. So we'll get to a point where it's an even more even playing field. But yeah, so a lot to think about in that space. And we have to be aware of whether it's images that we're using AI for, or whether it's work that we're doing about the biases that might be coming through the documents or the images. Some of them will be obvious, like the image from the Waitangi Treaty Grounds and their object. Oh no, yours was accurate, mine, the story wasn't. Putting in a wrong culture to represent mana whenua, but in documents or other things, it can be tricky to work out what's right and what's wrong. So it's really being critical about those things.
Well, it is 4:30. I'm sure we've got gazillion more questions, but I really want to thank all of you for the time you've taken today to join us today. I think I can speak for all of us that we would love to have more conversation about that. Is that what I see around this online room here? Yeah. So let's have more conversations. And Tara, I would love to have a follow-up on this if you are available, or if you wanted to pass it on to somebody else who you thought wanted to help us, because I think we're scratching the surface, and we are at a very crucial point in time where this will make changes, whether we like it or not. But we need to be ready, and we need to know how to leverage off it. So kia ora whānau, thank you so much once again for joining us today. This recording will be made available through the usual channels. It will go up on YouTube and will go up onto our website. Thank you once again for joining us. Thank you so much, Tara. And if my screen actually pops up on here, we could all do karakia together to finish us our session off. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā tara tara ki tai. Ehi ake ana te atakura, e tio, he hoka, he hauhu, ti hei Maori ora. Thank you so much once again. Really appreciate having all of you, and we'll see you again soon. E kona.
Hello. Are you still there, or have you gone too?
I'm here. I was just quickly